Hey friends, just as a reminder where we're starting out here, I always start distal to proximal. So in this case, instead of starting at your tight feet or where your foot pain is, we will be starting in the upper body at the head and forehead, as well as, that was Tom Myers, this is Joseph Schwartz. This is his interpretation of the same idea. So in this case, we're also going to encompass the forearms and the triceps in the beginning of our journey today. First order of business is getting to the forearms and fingers. I'll post a link to this. This is just a $10 thing on Amazon. So I can roll out my fingers. It's also got this nice guy. You could even just kind of, self-massage as you do this, but this is a convenient rolling out. I could get at the other continuation of that line. We're gonna go for it a little bit more aggressively. This is a Ma roller, and full disclosure, I have actually never tried foam rolling my tricep on this. Alternatively, you could use any type of a massager, cupping set. We're basically just trying to get all through here. You could also use a foam roller. I just figure the tricep looks like it's gonna fit in there pretty conveniently. I always work distal to proximal when somebody comes in, because I feel like by the time we get to the target pain area, it's usually not as bad because we've released along these fascial and kinetic chains. So I could also do some rotation here. I could do some bending and straightening. I could rotate my arm. This is definitely pretty uncomfortable. Okay, I'll do the other side. I have a client in their senior years, and they swear by this thing. Their spinal mobility is just crazy, and I don't feel like I get the benefit as much from the foam rollers anymore. It just doesn't feel as challenging. So I recently purchased this and actually, tried going along my spine on either side. And let's just say there were a lot of expletives. Going here. Diving my arm open more. Okay, we are next going to go into releasing up at the base of the skull. So what we're trying to get at is the suboccipitals. So think of that divot right at the base of your skull and your neck. This is a gnarly spot for everyone, especially from doing this all day long. This is a still point inducer. It's like a relaxation inducer. It's a trigger point release for right there. There's also something called the occipivot that's a lot more intense and feels lovely. I just don't happen to own it. These are also something that I'll refer to later on in this series. This is one of two top things that I suggest for people who have foot pain and plantar fasciitis, tight feet. It's really convenient that you can also, boom, just do that. So I'll post a link to all these things. We're gonna do it just for utility here so that this applies to everyone. We're just gonna use fingers. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm gonna have my fingers like this underneath my skull, and I'm propping them up. If you don't have strong hands or they get a little crampy, that's why having a little tool is nice. Here we go. So I've got hands under head, and I'm just gonna hold there. And as that skin starts to relax, I'm going to slowly tip my chin down and traction the back of my skull. I'm then also just going to give myself a little scalp massage along that fascial line, remembering that it goes on either side of the neck and inserts into just above the eyebrows. So we're even going to kind of just do little slow pulls on the forehead as well. And then you can even take that into pinching and holding up on the eyebrows. And then finally pulling up at the bridge of the nose. Feel free to do as many of these as you would like. We're going to do one last bit too, where I'm going to have fingers similarly. Only this time I'm going to pull wide, like I'm trying to separate that fascial line. Again, letting my chin tip down so that I'm actually lengthening these muscles, because what they do is that they cock the chin up. One more. Moving on to stretching those areas now, I can really reach, like I'm tensing this line of my arm, and I can just kind of let this pull across, so I'm separating these two. I'm tractioning right at the base of my skull there. I can wiggle my fingers. I can rotate my hand. I can kind of look down at the floor and then even kind of go palm to the ceiling as I do that. So doing that on the other side, and I'll turn around. You can see what I'm doing with my hand then. So I'm tractioning, rotating, palm to the ceiling, looking down at my toes on the same side hand that's on top. This next stretch is to get at the shoulder blades, but we're also going to combine it as a groin stretch as well. And I'll probably count to 30 on each side. So I think we've all known this guy. You're gonna lay down, dive it across, really reach overhead. You're looking under the armpit, swing the leg up and out to the side. So I'm counting to 30. And things are starting to loosen up, so I can actually adjust deeper into this twist now and deep into the reach. Okay, swapping sides. Now today's focus about how this all kind of, pulls into the plantar fascia is, once again, either side of the spine and kind of looking at this diagonal connection down. What that means is that then ideally we would stretch our spine, meaning like so. One of the reasons that I put in the first video was that people can get plantar fasciitis actually by kind of pinning their shoulder blades together, which is why we just released that. Also though, when the spine gets tight, which is a common thing with stress, actually like the thing that encapsulates the spinal cord can get tense. So we actually want to try to stretch the whole spine. If you have a yoga ball, like one of those big yoga balls, and believe it or not, I actually don't own one, you could just dome your body over that and passively relax for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to however long you want to be there. Another option here is sort of a modified plow pose from yoga, which may not be in everybody's mobility. If you don't have anything like this, you're basically just trying to stretch out like so, so maybe get creative about maybe what your options are at your house. I'm gonna kick my legs overhead. And here too, I'll hold for, let's say 10 counts. And I am trying to get my knees, working on this, to eventually get down to the floor. So I'm letting my spine relax, I'm letting the back of my neck elongate, and breathing. And taking my time to come out. Another passive neck stretch involves just a folded up hand towel. So I'm gonna lay on my back. I'm gonna cradle it right at that base of the occipital ridge, right at the base of the head. And I'm really using my shoulder strength here to anchor, not so much jamming down my back, but just let my scapula be heavy on the table as my head lifts up. And I can play with rotating. So my head is actually not really the thing doing the rotation right now. It's the push-pull of my hands. And I can just play with elongating the back of my neck and breathing. So you can feel free to do some lower lifts, but it's not a crunching action. It's a lifting and having your neck understand it can release into a hammock action, and see if you kind of feel some release in those neck muscles from that. As we get further along in this series, there will be more of a focus of the release, stretch, and then re-engage. In this case, triceps aside, but we'll kind of deal with that more whenever we get into the exercise portion towards the end of this course. Here it's more about just releasing and letting those areas just realize that they don't need to be doing this all the time. Next session we'll go in for the diaphragm and breath and how that component fits in with how your feet are tight. Thanks for watching.